Welcome to the Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen podcast. I'm your host and the original Christian Drama Queen, Lisa Schaefer, and I'm glad that you're here. I can promise you that I know what it's like to think like a lover of Jesus, but live like a hot mess every day. And if you can relate, then you're in the right place, because everything from the craziness of homeschooling to overcoming deep wounds of abandonment and abuse, we're going to talk about that stuff. So stay with me, sister. I have walked down those paths and have decades of healing and hope. God's called me to share it with you. So here we go. All right, here we go indeed. So glad that you guys are with me today. So I want to talk to you today about how the Christian drama queen actually experienced bullying at an extremely young age. It's hard for me to believe that it's been this long ago. Children can be incredibly cruel. And I know people say this all the time, but until you have experienced their cruelty, you really don't understand what that means. Shortly after beginning my daily routine of walking to the school bus and traveling across town to school, when I was very young, I was face to face with my first legitimate bully. We're going to call him Jay so I don't get sued. Jay was probably 11 or 12 years old. I think he was at least a year older than me, maybe 2. He was quite charming. He was quick with a joke, and all the kids seemed to just vie for his attention on the bus. Let the clicking begin. As I stated in earlier podcasts, I was pretty shy when I was little. People who know me now find that very hard to believe, but it's true. And I would have given anything for this bully to like me, but he didn't. He made that abundantly clear. I'm not sure why he didn't like me. You have to remember things were a lot different back then. This would have been, 1974, 1975. We didn't have hour-long assemblies on tolerance and kindness when I went to school. So when a pattern of bullying behavior began to emerge, I did nothing but try to ignore it, which was a big mistake. The kid must have been incredibly bored, since he just had to sit behind me on the bus every single day. We didn't have assigned seats. And at first, it was just comments about me being fat and ugly, having straggly hair. Maybe it was my freckles. I was the blob, or that poor little fat girl, or the girl that must be stupid because she never talks. And then began the hair pulling and the poking of his sharp index finger into my back. He frickled the back of my head. You know what frickling is, right? That's when you flip somebody with your middle finger. You use your thumb as the propellant, and it propels your middle finger into someone else. And I just kept thinking that if I ignored this bully, he would lose interest. But he did not. And where was the bus driver when all this was going on? He was terrified of this kid too. He wasn't a big kid. He was just angry. And the driver had addressed the kid's hyper behavior on the way to school frequently, but to no avail. They once stood toe-to-toe glaring at each other, and the kid did not back down. That bus driver's face was right in his face, and he did not back down. The bullying became more and more violent. The more I didn't do anything about it, the worse it got, until finally he hit me with his fist. Or actually, I should say that he hit me with someone else's fist. Let me explain. So there was this intellectually disabled, or what we called educationally challenged adult, who rode the bus with us every day back then. He was physically intimidating, but he was sweet as he could be. Probably 6 feet tall. He had bright red hair and freckles, and he had this adorable laugh. I'm going to call him Jamie. He absolutely worshipped Jay. He wanted his attention and approval more than anything. I can remember days when he would try to get Jay's attention from his seat on the bus. Jay, 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 just trying to get him to pay attention to him. He wanted his approval so much, and he would have done whatever Jay told him to gain that friendship and prove his loyalty. I had been told by my mother to start sitting close to the front so the oh-so-impotent driver could keep an eye on me. Whatever. I sat right behind Jamie, who always sat close to the front as well. Jay never sat down on the bus. He was teasing and bugging people the entire ride. I don't know how many times that driver, quote, warned him to sit down. And this particular day was no different. Jay worked his way to the front of the bus and started chatting up Jamie. Hey, buddy, let's work on our boxing moves, he said. And Jamie was thrilled. He got Jay's attention. Sure, Jay, what do I need to do? He asked with his 6-year-old trust. First, you got to find your target. Turn around. There it is, Jay instructed. And Jamie followed his lead, stood up, looked directly at me. Now, I want you to rabbit punch just like this. Jay began to demonstrate a little rabbit punch as Jamie shadowed him, and he began getting closer and closer to my face with his swings. I know in my heart of hearts, Jamie would never have hurt me had it not been for his admiration of Jay. No, get close enough to connect, Jay urged. And then Jamie connected with my right eye socket. Yeah, buddy, do it again, Jay kept prompting, and Jamie just kept swinging. His left fist landing blow after blow to my right eye socket, and the driver's voice bellowing to, quote, stop that or he'd pull over, which he never did, and the boys just completely ignored him. They were right behind him, and they completely ignored him. And I sat there, and I took it. And I can't even tell you why. I don't know. After several swings, a girl on the bus named Erin, who typically was a mean girl, she stepped in and said, Jay, she's had enough. And Jamie's eyes flashed up at Erin in shock, as if he just realized, perhaps for the first time, he was doing something wrong. Maybe it was a bad thing. And Jay kept laughing, and Jamie squirmed back into his seat, face forward and puzzled. And there I sat, red-faced, literally, black-eyed, and crying. I felt weak and exposed and beyond vulnerable, completely unprotected, totally victimized. And the shame weighed a life-crushing ton, and I could feel its impact on my chest. We arrived at one school, dropped off the bully bunch, him, and then we headed to the next school where the bus dropped my bunch off. And as we got off the bus, Miss Morris saw my face, and she gasped in horror. Oh my God, child, what happened to you? She said. She quickly ushered me to the nurse's office where a cold pack was applied to my face and Child Protective Services was called. It seems my appearance led the faculty to believe that my parents had beaten me. I was questioned at length, and I was sent home with my mother a few hours later, and neither Jay nor Jamie was allowed to ride the bus again. And it seems to me like we got a new bus driver too, but I'm not absolutely certain. I've often wondered what kind of discipline Jamie was subjected to that day. More so, I can only guess the kind of home life Jay must have had as a kid for him to think this was okay. Was he hurt so much that he assumed it was okay to hurt others? Was he punished harshly when his parents found out what he had done to me? And I never found out, although I could have asked. So there's more to the story. Why didn't I fight back? My memory of this event is extremely clear. I can see both boys standing in front of me and Jamie's huge fist coming at my face repeatedly. I can feel the sting of my own tears trickling down my swollen cheek. I can still hear the gasp of Mrs. Morris when she saw my face as I got off that bus. The thought that haunts me most is my inability or my unwillingness to fight back. It seems like I am just drawn back to that time when I was 4 and I was molested by that 16-year-old boy. Why did I sit there and take it? Did I think so little of myself by this time that I just couldn't bring myself to scream, "Stop hurting me"? We didn't attend church often when I was in primary school. Sunday services at the local Christian church with my grandparents was on a holiday, and that was about it. I wasn't raised with a foundation of biblical precepts or concepts, even though my grandparents did a lot to instill moral values. Most of what I remember about church services was the embarrassment that I felt when my little brother would point out that he could smell someone's silent but deadly contribution in the pew behind us. Churches were places to be seen and not heard, a place where people looked fantastic but acted bored and disconnected, and God was that guy in the photo in the middle of the Old Testament, probably an artist's rendering of King Solomon or something. But it was in Meme's family Bible. He was crowned and he was stoic and he was sitting on a throne with a golden rod at his side. He was certainly not approachable. So as a 10-year-old bullied victim, I really had no idea how valuable I was to God. And without that knowledge and without a father in my life to make sure that I knew how important I was to him, maybe I allowed the behavior and the verbiage of those around me to determine my value and whether or not I was worth fighting for. So it's likely my father had no idea what he was doing to this little girl by abandoning me. But then again, realizing now what I do about who he really was, perhaps he just didn't care. Even if he had known, perhaps he didn't care. Unfortunately, it would take decades of bullying, some by others and some by me, before realizing how much I mean to Jesus, and for me to stop living like a victim, the life of a discarded daughter. Now, you won't believe this. 5 or 6 years later, while I was skating at the roller rink with some friends, I was probably 14 or 15, a boy approached me and asked if I'd like to join him during a couple skate. It was a taller, cleaner, more rugged version of Jay. Yep, it was him. And of course, by then, I had lost the baby fat. I had worked hard on my, quote, Farrah Fawcett hairdo, and I had just enough makeup on to make both my grandparents happy, fresh face, but not trampy. I was looking fine, if I do say so myself, back then. And when I realized who this kid was, I initially reacted in fear, shrinking back just a little bit. And then I realized this loser had no idea who I was. I said, "You don't recognize me, do you?" I spoke it with this knowing smile, right? He said, "Should I?" He was almost embarrassed. I said, "I certainly know you. Remember that fat girl you used to bully on the bus?" And his eyes got real big, and his face went pale, and his smile dissolved into a grimace. And he took a step back, and he ogled me head to toe for just a moment. And I pressed my face forward, and I intently gazed right into his eyes. I said, "Yep, that was me. You still want to be my skating partner?" He said nothing. What was he supposed to say? Whoops. He slowly backed away in absolute silence, which still makes me giggle today. I obviously didn't think enough of myself back then to stand up and stand against the bully. But now that I know who I really am, ain't nobody gonna knock me down. Well, thanks for joining me again today on the Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Schaefer. I'm glad that you are here and were able to be with us today. So let's talk a little bit about ways that you can find out more about me. Just go to christiandramaqueen.com if you want to see my blog and you want to learn more about going from being discarded to redemption. It is part of the ministry of Christian Drama Queen Solutions, LLC. If you want to get some free resources for me, go to freedom.christiandramaqueen.com and you can sign up there for some free goodies. Also, I've got 2 Bible studies, Discarded, a daughter's journey to reclaim freedom and forgive the father who left her behind. And then, of course, the Christian Victim's Guide to Forgiving the Unforgivable. Now, these are both available on Amazon by the title or by my name, which is right on the screen if you're watching YouTube. And you can go to Amazon and find them. But if you'll just send me an email, lisa@christiandramaqueen.com, ask me for those Bible studies. I'll connect with you and we'll find out a way, for you to pay for them and get them. But if you get them from my email, I will go ahead and spiral bind them for you, which is something that, an old homeschool mom like me really appreciates. So take care of yourself, guys, and join me next time. Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen. And I love you.